Well, as you see right now at 6 o'clock, polls are officially open here in Louisiana, with hundreds of thousands exercising their right to vote for one of the most historic elections in our nation's history. Good morning. Thank you for waking up with us on this Tuesday. I'm Randy Russo.
And I'm Christina Watkins. You know, throughout this election season, we've seen a record number of voters, some of you voting for the very first time. We've also seen activism across the country, making sure you exercise your right. Nearly 100 million Americans already voted across the country, 985,000 of those voters coming from right here in Louisiana, voting early between mail-in ballots and early votes. Our statewide numbers are way higher than what we saw in 2016.
Yeah, and right now all eyes will be on the race for the Oval Office as we take a live look from the White House this morning. President Trump and challenger Joe Biden have been hitting the campaign trail very hard the past few days, vying for every vote until the very last second.
And this morning and all throughout the day, you can count on us here at WDSU to bring you everything you need to know from the ballot to the polls. But first, let's get a look at your forecast with meteorologist Quaylen Murphy. If you're heading out the door, good morning.
Good morning. The all-important forecast, a chilly start this morning, 5 to 10 plus degrees colder compared to this time yesterday. Slidell at 38 degrees along with Bogalusa, 37 degrees in Hammond. You could probably see your breath if you blow this morning. 42 degrees in Belle Chase and 46 in Galliano. Thankfully, bright skies headed our way with sunrise coming up at 6:17. No rainfall in the forecast and lots of sunshine. At the airport, 48 degrees, calm conditions and high pressure north of us. It's going to set us up for dry weather and a nice gradual warm up into the afternoon. High temperatures today, upper 60s to around 70 degrees. If you're headed to the polls early, though, definitely you want to bundle up. If you're going to the polls late today, if that's a part of your plans, make sure you're still bundled up because temperatures will be dropping off by that time. Low 60s by 8 o'clock. We're also tracking what will soon be a landfalling Category 4 Hurricane Eta over northeastern Nicaragua. Right now, winds at 145. That's down from the last advisory at 150, but this is still going to be a catastrophic situation for Central America. I'll have more details on this and our gradual warm up this week when I come back. Randy and Christina, back to you.
And Quaylen, I know it's already just 6:02, only 6:02 this morning, but the first ballots are already in on this election day. The tiny towns of Dixville Notch and Millsville, New Hampshire already announced their results overnight.
Yeah, this comes as many of you are getting ready to head out the door to vote here in Southeast Louisiana, and millions of others doing the same across the country. Jared Hill joins us live this morning in our Washington bureau with the look ahead to the big day. Jared, we made it.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Christina and Randy. Yeah, as you guys were mentioning earlier today, more than 98 million Americans already have cast their ballots before Election Day itself. And despite those incredible numbers, despite potentially long lines and the pandemic, we're still expecting to see tens of millions more show out today. Now, so far, looking at some of the data, Democrats have been outpacing Republicans when it comes to early voting, which was expected. But Republicans are expected to turn out in larger numbers today. The focus, meanwhile, for tonight is going to be on a handful of battleground states. The campaigns spent yesterday bouncing across the likes of Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, North Carolina, and then especially Pennsylvania. That's one of those states that was traditionally blue, but then ended up going for President Trump back in 2016. It's trending for Biden right now, but within the margin of error. That's important because that's also the case for a lot of these other swing states. So at this point, it really could be anybody's game. Both of these campaigns know it, and so they're trying to get their supporters out to the polls. Take a listen.
It's time to rebuild the backbone of this country, the middle class, and this time bring everybody along.
With your vote, we will continue to cut your taxes, cut regulations, support our great police.
Now, something else that's unprecedented for this year. This morning, there's a temporary so-called non-scalable wall around the White House as businesses in cities and towns around the country are boarding up windows, anticipating protests for after when these results are called. A really important thing for everybody to remember, though, is that because of all the absentee and mail-in ballots that we've been seeing, and some of these states, specifically some of those swing states, may not be counting those until after the election day votes are actually in. We might not know the results of this election quite as soon as some folks might be hoping. Back to you.
And Jay, let's talk about the candidates here. What are the campaigns doing today specifically for President Trump and Joe Biden?
Yeah, so while the campaign is essentially done at this point, they are still doing a little bit of work. You have President Trump on one hand making a stop by the Republican National headquarters here in Northern Virginia that they have set up. And then on the flip side, the Biden campaign is kind of all over the place today. They're going to be in Pennsylvania as well as Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, and Ohio, sort of rallying the troops. And then they're going to be back in Delaware for the night to kind of watch this whole thing play out. Back to you.
All right, Jared Hill there for us live in Washington. Thank you.
And right now here in Louisiana, the polls are officially open and people are already in line. They've been waiting there even before 6 o'clock.
That's right. Heath Allen joining us now for one of those polling locations in Gentilly with already the crowds that are getting ready to vote. I actually just spoke with Mark Romig, Heath Allen, who says he's heading out right now to St. Rita's.
I tell you what, right, there is a crowd already gathering here. We're at the Baptist Theological Seminary here in Gentilly, and you can see behind me the line's already stretched out quite a ways. And really right now, so far, so good. Arthur Morrell, Clerk of Court. Arthur, you just got off the phone checking in. We had so many issues leading up to this election day, but so far, so good.
So far, it's been very nice. All the polls are open. Here today, they had about 100 in line waiting, but there's more people coming. We expect a large crowd today.
And we were talking a moment ago. You know, we hear so much rancor around the country. Here, everybody's so polite in line. You say, yeah, that's New Orleans.
Well, you know, we're accustomed to meeting people, standing close with parades and all other kind of functions we have, so it's not uncommon to be social with people.
So yesterday we got all the power back to as many polling places as possible. Those that didn't get power back have generators, including St. Dominic's. I understand this got a building generator over there. Everything's running.
Everything. Only 2 polling stations needs generators, and they're up and running because they couldn't get the electricity to turn on, but all the other ones are running just fine.
Do you expect a record-breaking day today?
From what I've seen so far, I've been driving back and forth. They had lines at some of the polling places. We expect a large turnout. So far, there's been over 90,000 early voters plus absentee ballots that they've received. And they didn't finish counting because they got a whole bunch more after 4:30, but we have to count them. So we expect a good bit of people.
And it's going to take a while to get all the votes counted. We won't have all the votes counted locally or nationally today.
Well, I tell you, Louisiana might be the first to give a return because we're pretty good. And with the already count that we have with the early voters and the absentee, I think we're going to have our count by 11 o'clock, our final count.
Wow. All right, Arthur Morrell, I appreciate that. Clerk of Court here in Orleans. Bottom line is polls are indeed open. The day is finally here. There's power to all of the polling places, whether it be hardwire or be by generator. Folks are already in line. The process is underway, and at some point, either tonight or in the coming days, we'll know who the next president of the United States is, and we'll have some answers on local races as well. Guys, back to you.
All right, Heath Allen live for us in Gentilly. Heath, thank you. Right now, taking a look at power outages. Still more than 40,000 people in the dark this morning after Hurricane Zeta. Most of the outages we are seeing are in Jefferson Parish. So we know that leads to the question, what about my polling site? JP leaders want to assure you all 143 voting locations will have power today. He kind of touched on this, whether it's because Entergy crews got things up and running or either because maybe they're using a generator.
Yeah, the parish has more than 100 pods on hand right now, which contain a generator, extension cords, and other equipment just to make sure that voting moves forward and moves smoothly. Wherever generator power is being used, though, a firefighter will be on site to make sure that everything is safe.
We really did an assessment of the entire parish post-storm to make sure that all the buildings had the structural integrity to be able to receive these voters, and all of them do. Luckily, all of them were not damaged during the storm, and it was just an electricity issue.
Well, as for the other parishes impacted by these power outages, we are told that all polling sites are back up and running in Orleans, St. Bernard, St. Charles Parish. As for Plaquemine, 4 sites are without power, but they will be run by generators. In Lafourche Parish, 3 sites are still in the dark. 1 will be operated by generator. The other 2 sites in Golden Meadow were moved. And this morning, we are taking an in-depth look at all of the amendments that you're going to see on the ballot. There are 7 of them, and Amendment 3 deals directly with our state legislature and lawmakers' ability to use the rainy day fund for disaster. So here's a closer look at what a yes or no vote means on proposed Amendment number 3 and how it impacts our state finances. Here in Louisiana, we have our fair share of disasters. Just a couple of months ago, Hurricane Laura devastated southwest Louisiana, and that's not to mention all the close calls this hurricane season. So if you vote yes to Amendment 3, you would be giving lawmakers the ability to tap into the state's rainy day fund for these emergencies rather than waiting on the federal government.
And when we were thinking about doing this legislation, we were thinking about Hurricane Katrina. If something on that magnitude would hit the state of Louisiana, how will we respond?
Representative Gary Carter from New Orleans authored the measure, saying it's been in the works for some time.
This is money to help the restoration, to help get the utilities back on, to help with government search and rescue, to help immediately as we're waiting for FEMA and the federal government to get on the ground and figure out what's going on.
He says as soon as the federal government reimburses Louisiana for a disaster, that money would go back into the emergency fund.
So this would allow an additional way of going into the rainy day fund.
However, on the flip side, opponents are afraid of depleting that account or tapping into it too frequently.
And the argument's been that we want to save that for when our state collections are lowered.
There are safeguards, however, limitations to how much and how often money can be taken from that fund.
And I think it's got to have this safeguard piece in it that when the federal reimbursement money is received, it goes straight into the rainy day fund to replenish that fund.
Just to make sure when those big events happen, and unfortunately we've been having too many of them, we're able to be there for the state of Louisiana, for our people when they have rainy days.
Even if Amendment 3 passes, you would still need a 2/3 majority vote from both the House and the Senate in order for lawmakers to be able to pull that money from the rainy day fund. I'm Randy Russo, WDSU News. Well, it's 6:12 now. Coming up from the state flag to marijuana, we take a closer look at what's on the ballot in Mississippi.
Also, new details this morning inside a hazing investigation at LSU. We'll tell you what we're learning after a student was sent to the hospital.
And don't forget, you'll find our WDSU weather forecast every weekday morning on Nash 106.1, The Crew 106.7, Alt 92.3, and 102.9.